Today what we're going to do is we're going to start kind of that final review for what you guys are going to need to know for your end of the year final. So today we are going to focus actually primarily this week over chapters 1 and 2. And then on Friday there will be a quiz over all of the notes that we take this week, Monday through Thursday, which once again will just be a review over chapter 1 and 2. From a long time ago, we learned these rules. If you would please, with your red pen, I want you to write these rules in on your notes. All right, so you can see the rules here. It says same sign, you're going to add the numbers and keep the sign. Different sign, you're going to subtract the numbers and take the sign of the larger number. How many of you would say, oh yes, I remember this from way back at the beginning of the year from chapter 1? Okay, so there was a song that we did way back at the beginning of the year. If you would, please sing the song with me so we can be reminded of this. Ready, begin. Same sign, add and keep, different sign, subtract. Take the sign of the larger number, then you'll be exact. Last time. Same sign, add and keep, different sign, subtract. Take the sign of the larger number, then we'll be exact. All right, and then we have a very important saying that we said at the beginning of the year. I want you to take out that red pen if you would and fill this in for me. Every number has a sign, and that sign is what? Is directly in front of that number. All right, so now we're going to use those rules to help us find the sum. Let's look at this first one, guys. Same sign or different sign? Same sign. Add the numbers, keep the sign. Guys, what's -4 plus -2? -6 is correct. Box that answer in. Let's go to the right, problem B. Anson, same sign or different sign? Same sign. Add the numbers, keep the sign. What do you got? Okay, you want to add the numbers and keep the sign. So what sign is there?
Oh, negative.
Negative. So the correct answer is going to be -15. All right, let's go to the next one. Ariana, same sign or different sign?
Different.
Same sign, add and keep. Different sign, subtract and take. What's the answer?
-5.
-5 is correct. Kyla, -3 plus 7.
4.
Correct. +4. She took the sign of the larger number, which was positive, so the answer is +4. Just the girls. 8 plus -4. What is it?
4.
4 is correct. And just the boys, -15 plus 8. -7. Very good. How many of you would say you feel pretty comfortable with this? This is definitely a review for you, and you do remember it. Okay. Awesome. Let's move on to the next section. Double negatives. These are two negatives side by side with no number in between them. If you would, I want you to take your red pen and just draw a little cloud around that idea. Okay, so we've got an idea here. Our first example. Guys, what do I need to do with that double negative right there? Okay, take your red pen. I want you to turn that into a monster positive, and directly underneath it now, instead of 3 minus -1, this became a 3 plus 1. So guys, what's the answer?
4.
4 is correct. Go ahead and box that in. All right, I want you to try A and B with your partner, and then we'll talk about your answers here in just a second. Okay, so remember, as we said here, if you have a double negative, they both become what? Positive, okay? So the double negative here, you hopefully have rewritten this. Guys, what's 12 plus 9? 21. Raise your hand if you and your partner got that same answer. Okay, good job. If you didn't, that's okay. Erase it and fix it. Let's talk about this. Guys, is that number right there a double negative that I highlighted? No, why not? Okay, this is a negative and that's a negative, but if you notice here, there is a number in between it. So that is not a double negative right there. Where is the double negative?
Right in between the 2 and 5.
Over there. So what should I do with that double negative?
Make it a positive.
Make it a big positive. When I rewrite it, I now have -10 plus 5. Guys, what's -10 plus 5?
-5.
-5. If you did not get that, please erase your answer and fix it. All right, for the next one, it says to evaluate the expression when A equals 2, B equals -4, and C equals -3. So right here, instead of this B, what should I plug in, class? -4, very good. I also need to drop down the what? The minus sign, okay? So if this is a minus sign here, I have to bring down that minus sign. Now let's look at this, guys. What is C? Okay, so for C, I am plugging in a -3. I want you guys to solve that on your own. Do we have a double negative? Yes, okay, it's a -3. Turn that into a monster positive, and I'm left with -4 plus 3. Guys, what's -4 plus 3? -1 is correct. I want you and your partner to do the next 3 problems together. All right, moving on to problem B. As you can see, it says -C minus A. So I'm going to bring down my negative, and I'm going to bring down my minus. Let's talk about C. Zion, what was C?
C was 2 positive.
Double check, what was C?
C equals what in the instructions?
Oh, C equals -3.
-3. So I'm going to plug in a -3 here for C. And then, guys, what was A? 2. Okay, so instead of an A, I am plugging in a 2. Do you see any double negatives there?
Yes.
Yes, I do too. So what happens to the double negative? It becomes a positive. So now I have +3, or just 3, minus 2. Guys, what's 3 minus 2? 1. How many of you would say you and your partner got that answer? Okay, as I walked around, most people had that one. This next one, a few people looked like they were confused. Do you remember what this line here means?
Absolute value.
Absolute value, okay? So basically, absolute value means how far away is it from 0 on a number line. Guys, what do I plug in for A?
2.
2 plus, what was B?
-4.
-4. If I ever have 2 signs side by side, a positive and a negative, who wins?
The negative.
The negative always wins, so I can get rid of that plus sign right there. And now I am left with the absolute value of 2 minus 4. Class, what is 2 minus 4? -2. So, just for a visual to help you remember, this means if I had a number line, I'll put it over here, and that number line looked like this.
No.
Okay? All right, so what I'm trying to do right here is figure out how far away -2 is from 0. How far away is it from 0, class? 2. So the correct answer would be 2. How many of you would say you guys got that? Okay, this next one is the one that I did not see anybody with the correct answer. So let's start with plugging in. I think most people got the plug in, but then they did not answer it correctly. A over B. Guys, what was A?
2.
2 over, what was B?
-4.
-4. At this point, guys, most people thought that that meant -4 divided by 2. Guys, does that mean -4 divided by 2?
That means 2 divided by -.
It means 2 divided by -4. Or basically what you could do is you could reduce it. Guys, is there anything that goes into a 2 that also goes into a 4?
2.
A 2. So I could divide the top by 2 and divide the bottom by 2. Guys, what's 2 divided by 2? 1. What's 4 divided by 2? 2. And then we've got to remember this was a negative. So guys, what's the answer? -1/2. Do you see where the mistake was? Okay, if I wanted to come over here and do it like this, 4 goes into 25 times. 5 times 4 is 20. 20 minus 20 is 0. So technically the answer would be -0.5, which, as you can see, is the same thing as -1/2. Is everyone following? Because that looked like everyone made a mistake on that one. Okay. All right, for the final 5, it is a think, pair, share section. I want you and your partner to go ahead and work on this together. All right, as I looked around, I found a lot of good answers. Let's just go over them and make sure you got the correct one. Guys, negative 8 plus 20, what'd you guys get?
12.
12 is correct. Let's go on to the next one. 30 plus negative 30. 0, okay? Because a number and its opposite always equals 0. Guys, what would 10 plus negative 10 be? 0. What would 5 plus negative 5 be? 0. These are all going to be 0, okay? So these are the ones where I started to see some people had some struggles. This is what it asks. Is 3 plus negative 4 the same thing as negative 4 plus 3? Raise your hand if you say yes, that's the same. Raise your hand if you believe no, that is different. Okay, so I'm going to take it back to sometimes when we add in negative numbers, we start to get confused, okay? So let's think about this. Guys, what is 2 plus 3?
5.
5. Let's switch it up. Change the order. 3 plus 2, what is that? 5. So now let's talk about this. 3 plus negative 4, what would that be? That's a negative 1 because you take the sign of the larger number. Let's look at this. Negative 4 plus 3, what is that? Negative 1. So guys, yes or no, is it the same?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Does anyone remember the fancy word that tells us you're allowed to switch the order when you're adding and it doesn't change the answer? It starts with a C. You guys were close over there. Not calculate. Halen got it. Halen coming up and grab a candy. It is the commutative property. Once again, this is a rule that says you can switch around the order when adding and it does not change the answer. Okay? Let's go on to our true-false ones. Raise your hand if you thought this one was true. Raise your hand if you thought this one was false. Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you guys to take your red pen, if you would, please, and I want you to underline the word sum. Guys, what does sum mean? Is that add, subtract, multiply, or divide? Adding. So what this says is the sum of two negative integers. So when you add together two negative integers, it will always be negative. So let's just give ourselves, when it's true and false, a lot of times I would say it's a good idea to go back. Give yourself some examples. So let's start with a small negative number. What's a small negative number? Negative 1 is pretty small. We'll start with that. And the sum means to add. So plus, what's another small negative number? Negative 2. Same sign, add the numbers, keep the sign. What would the answer be? Negative 3. Remember, because you are adding the numbers and keeping the sign, in this case, it will always be negative. So what was the answer, true or false? It is true. If you did not get that, please erase it and fix it. And I want you to actually write down my example there so that you have a visual for why that is a true statement. All right, the final one here, the sum of an integer and its absolute value is always 0. Raise your hand if you said true on this one. Raise your hand if you said false on this one. All right, so we look like we're like 50-50 once again. So as I always say, true, false, give yourself some numbers to plug in. The sum, remind me again, guys, what does sum mean? Adding. An integer and its absolute value, okay? So let's say an integer of 3 plus negative 3, okay? We could say the absolute value of negative 3. Guys, what is the absolute value of negative 3?
3.
Regular 3. What's 3 plus 3?
6.
6. So we have just proven it is not always 0. So what's the answer, true or false?
False.
The answer is false. If you did not get that, I want you to put in my example there to help you understand that that was false. All right, so for another example, we could see she was saying a sum of an integer. It could have been negative 3 plus negative 3, okay? So then that would be negative 3 plus 3. And what would that answer be, guys? 0. Here's the thing, though. You've got to go back and look at this. It says the sum of an integer and its absolute value is always 0. So that really would be the key word there. It's definitely not always. It can be, but it's not always 0. All right, so tonight's homework is going to be our first final review homework. It's going to be in Big Ideas, final review number 1, and there are just 10 problems.